Hey, yo, Chris, where you at? I'm in town.
What's good, Josh? Your boy Chris Hovers. We are back with the Solo Dolo podcast. Thank you to everybody who has been subscribing, supporting, showing love, sharing the content. I appreciate you. Thank you for everybody who's supporting We Can Go Far. If you haven't already, head over to wecangofar.com and cop you some merchandise. We have our first ever t-shirt drop now available. Our new comfort t-shirts. See, I'm still trying to get good at all this branding stuff, so bear with me. But yes, our new comfort t-shirts are now available, and not only that, but they have matching trucker hats to go with them. And if you buy a comfort t-shirt and use code buy2, you'll get 20% off the trucker hat. So go ahead over to the website, cop y'all some merchandise. Man, it's good to be back as always. I'm just here showing up, trying to stay consistent for y'all. And yeah, just talk about it, whatever it is. So I guess we can start just with the today. I was at work, and I had a little bit of downtime, so I decided to reach out to some family members. I my sister actually was in town, her and her husband. So yeah, my sister and my brother-in-law, they were in town. They had a layover flight in Atlanta, and I went to go see them in the airport while I was at work. And so that was real cool. I got to chop it up with them real quick. And that energy that they brought me, just that love of you and that energy of reconnecting with your family, it kind of made me feel like, you know, I needed to connect with the rest of my family or the rest of my friends or whoever I hadn't talked to, whoever came to mind in that moment. So I just started reaching out to people like my cousin, my brother, um, excuse me. Anyways, I think the most interesting conversation I had today was with my brother Elijah, right? And so, I was just checking in on him, man. Like, yo, what's good, bro? And we got to talking about, the stuff that's been going on in our lives. Of course, I started talking about all the different things I got going on as far as my music, solo dolo, recent connections that I've been making, and yeah, just as far as progressing in my professional career, etc. Right? And he asked me a really dope question that kind of like, it sparked a different way of thinking for me about how I'm actually approaching my journey as a creative, and especially in the creative industry, right? Sometimes I never really, it's different when you reflect on, how can I say this? What's the right way to say this? Like, in my last video, I talked about how my pops told me like I need to write a book to tell my story because who else is going to tell it for me? And it wasn't until he told me that I actually sat back and looked at my story from an objective perspective, or like an outside perspective, I guess. So my brother today asked me, he was like, how do you, like, what is your thought process, when you're switching gears and doing these different things, because you do so many different things. Like, what is your thought process behind trying new things and really, sticking to it, and not, I guess, not stepping out too far outside of yourself, trying something drastically different, I guess. Anyway, the question prompted me to think about, like, wow, okay, what actually is my process of doing solo dolo, doing We Can Go Far, building a brand, whether it's with my podcast, with my clothing brand, or with my music, as Chris Hovers. What is the thought process behind switching gears? And it's crazy because I just had a conversation with another creative, a guy named Jay, who's a fashion designer. He's also into different creative aspects of, or creative outlets and whatnot, right? And different endeavors that, as a multifaceted creator, like I mentioned in earlier videos, you have to be like careful about what territory you step into, especially if you're multitasking, or like you're charting different territories. You stepping in different ecosystems is what I like to call it. And so sorry, I got a little distracted. My friends are downstairs yelling. I think they watching like a game, or somebody playing a game, and everybody was like, "Yeah, yeah, let's go." So yeah. Anyway, um, yeah. So he was pretty much trying to understand, how do I manage to live within these different ecosystems as a creative and maintain myself through them as I'm trying different things, right? And it's funny how all these different conversations kind of tie into one another, because the conversation I had with Jay the other day was pretty much like warning him that, like, look, be careful, like, the different endeavors you get into as the type of creator that you are, because if you're a multifaceted creator, it's very easy to yourself give too much of yourself to different creative projects that don't necessarily feed back into you as much as you actually need them to. And so you have to be very mindful of what relationship. It has to be a symbiotic relationship. I think that's or a mutual relationship. It has to Everything has to work in tandem with one another. So for example, my involvement here at Late Night Early Mornings and Humane Media, it gives to me just as much as I give to it, as far as like what energy I put into building this brand with my friends and my teammates, right? So that's pretty much what I was explaining to my brother. I was like, first off, I got to make sure that whatever I am trying that's new, for example, this podcast is new. I didn't, like, a couple years back, I didn't think I would be like doing podcasts from this place as far as like the type of content that I'm actually making. But I will say that it doesn't really take from me. It actually gives a lot to me, because again, I get to see how I'm actually thinking. I get to watch this back and actually hear my own thought process, like, out loud, you know? And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to have the conversation out loud that I usually have within myself, and to help change your perspective on the conversations that you might be having with yourself. So, yeah, long story short, I told them, one, I always make sure whatever I'm getting into, it can't take more, it can't take too much from me, and it has to be very reciprocal as far as energy, right? I'm very big on energy. Two, as far as my own creative endeavors and ecosystems that I am building, whether it's my clothing brand, my podcast, and my music, or even my involvement with my friends in our media company and record label, I have to ensure that these different things have doorways that lead to each other. Like, I have to create hallways that connect all these different ecosystems, or bridges. So, for example, this podcast is a platform that I can use to promote my clothing brand, to promote my music, to connect with other people, to network. So it's bigger than just like, oh, I'm doing this podcast that's like way over here in the background that I have to go all the way over here to actually execute. But no, it all works in tandem as I'm creating new music, or creating or building my brand. These are processes that I want to talk about as I'm growing through them, because I'm doing them for the first time. So everything works in tandem. And that's pretty much what I was telling my brother. Like, you have to really, especially if you have talents or you can add value to other people in different ways, you have to be very careful as far as like what you get into. I said it in a previous video about it was titled "The Downside of Being a Jack of All Trades," is knowing when and how to say no, and how to trust yourself, pretty much. So you have to be very particular about what you give your energy to, because some people will present projects to you that are like dope ideas, and you actually can see yourself giving to it and contributing in a great way, and having a lasting impact on it in a very great way. However, it still can take you off track of what you're actually not just in alignment to do, but what you're actually trying to do. So that's pretty much what I told my brother. And, you know, we had a great conversation, man. Just chopped it up. It's really good to connect with your family, and just connect with, if somebody comes across your mind and you haven't spoken to them in a while, just give them a call, like, or send a text message. Like, I challenge everybody to do that. If someone came across your mind while you were watching this, and you know you haven't spoken to them in a while, just reach out to them. I promise it'll go a long way. So, and what brings me here today, on the note of consistency, not even just consistency, I really wanted to show up today for this podcast episode today, for the simple fact that I want to get closer to playing the game for the love of the game, and not for the points. Shout out to Russ. Like, I was just watching a video with him and Kyle Beats on the Kyle Beats podcast, and it just popped up on my YouTube. Crazy. Like, I wasn't even doing nothing. I was just eating some food just now. I just got off work. I was laying in the bed, and I was like, I'm gonna watch something. I turned on YouTube, and I saw the thumbnail. I clicked on it. It said a conversation with Russ, and a conversation with Russ is always a good one. So he was just talking about how when you play for the points, that's when you kind of get discouraged. Like, you might be working to put out content and expecting a certain result, and that the mismanagement of your expectations can lead you into a dark place as far as the consistency and the actual process of creating. So I'm learning to disassociate with the points and associate more with the game. Wow, that sounds like a bar. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, that's why I wanted to show up today and do this podcast, because it's not about how many people see this. It's not about how many views it gets. It's just about two things. One, or maybe three. One, me being able to reflect and release and share myself in this way for the sake of me first. And then two, hopefully that resonates with somebody else out there. What was that? I don't know what that was. I felt something on me. I don't know what it was, but I saw something flying away. One, for me to share myself in this way. Two, hopefully the way I share myself can help somebody else change their perspective, and hopefully a message resonates with them. And the third one, I forget if there's a third one. Anyway, I just want to get back to playing for the game. I don't care about playing for the points. Like, when I'm playing basketball, I'm not worried about how many points I'm making. I'm just worried about every time I do shoot, I want to see that I want to see the ball say all net. That's it. Like, I just love making great plays. And I think that's something that we have to work towards, not just as creatives, but as people just throughout life. You got to work. You gotta fall in love with the process of making good plays. That's it. Not just the result. The result is cool. Yeah, you can look at the scoreboard, see it's a lot of points, whatever. No, but the feeling of making your shots, that feels good. And even when you miss a couple, the feeling of just playing the game, like, all right, bet I'm gonna get y'all next game. Just the whole process. Like, I want to treat life like basketball a little more, and that's what I'm learning. That's gonna be the title of this video. Treat life a little more like basketball. Something along those lines. Anyways, ooh, what else should I talk about while I'm here? Okay, so I'll talk about this. It's really dope. Life is really interesting, especially right now for me. Speaking of the results, when you're not thinking about the results and you're just doing the work, results eventually do come in different ways. Some big, some small, some medium, some very significant. Some may seem not so significant, but still are, because it is. Anyways, I had an executive producer. I won't say her name just yet. I want to do some more, connecting with her, and I know she's probably going to see this episode because I share my podcast with her. But I met virtually with an executive producer of a much larger podcast, or should I say podcasts, production agency, podcasting agency. I forget the correct terms, but she's done a lot of great work with a lot of great people, a lot of big names, and she left. I won't even say too much of that. Long story short, she was looking to start something of her own, a project of her own, and the words humane media came to her head. Right? The words humane media came to mind for her. And when she went to go look up humane media, she found me. Now, The only reason why that is possible is because the work has been done, regardless of the points, regardless of the views, the content has been put out. Now, years ago when I started building with Humane Media in late night early mornings, I never imagined it happening that way, or something unfolding in that way, or somebody even finding us and then emailing me directly about the work that we're doing. You might think that, oh, I put out content for years, and the results, because of your expectations, if your expectations are just closed and fixed to one perspective, you might think that your exposure looks like 10,000 views, 20,000 views, 30,000 views, when it could be just that right person, the one person you need to connect you to a much greater opportunity, or a room that has even more valuable connections in it, right? So I just thought that was fascinating how she found us, and how, had we not been putting out the work or doing the work, regardless of how many people saw it or whatever the case may have been, she wouldn't be able to find us. So I just say that to say, keep putting the work in. You never know who's watching. Like I said in the previous episode, previous videos, you never know who's watching. Forget about the points. Play for the game. It's your boy Chris Hovers. Thank you again for watching. Tune into the next live. Stay tuned to my Instagram. I'm trying to still figure out how I'm going to like do these live streams, because I'm also trying to work out a schedule that works for my audience, because really I only do these on the late night, like past 12 a.m. So if you're not a night owl, you're probably gonna miss it. But yeah, it's your boy Chris Evans. Peace, blessings on to you.
Hey, yo, Chris, where you at? I'm in town.